In my most recent Cut Silksong content video, I gave an overview of some of Silksong's cut areas, briefly going over changes to places such as Mount Faye, Weave Nest Atla, and many others. What I failed to realize was that there's so much more than I initially thought. That's why I wanted to invest some time to carefully analyze 3 areas, which I feel received the biggest changes, and how these changes completely altered Pharloom's vibe. If you enjoy any type of Silksong content, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's dive right in. We've obviously got to start with the biggest talking point in any cut content conversation: the Red Coral Gorge. For years, the community was excited to explore these luscious coral forests and all the secrets hidden within. If you look at any fan-made map created before release, the coral forest takes up a huge portion of Pharloom. And I'm sure many of you were excited when the Silksong release trailer dropped and we got a clip of Hornet soaring through a coral area. A short conversation with the Caravantula, a cut fast travel NPC, reveals the gorge's story. In this biome, the coral flourishes, even reaching the point where its maintenance was quite difficult for the bugs there. Now that the haunting has taken over, the coral has overgrown and invaded every corner, essentially making travel in this region difficult for pilgrims. I for one feel that Team Cherry always nails the backstories for regions, and the gorge is certainly no exception. They also made sure to include overgrowth on other bugs there, such as the judges and even some unlucky pilgrims. Like many other cut areas, the Red Coral Gorge went through a few iterations. The portions we've seen in promotional material, this bright and colorful area, was an earlier variation that started development in 2017 up until November 2019, when the gorge was reworked into the area we'll be analyzing. Here it is, in all its glory. Before being reworked once again in 2021, the Red Coral Gorge was divided in 3 sub-areas. The giant eastern portion was called the Coral Steppes, so take a wild guess what it eventually became. This was the most hectic out of all the sub-areas. Here, Hornet would encounter Sharp's companions, the Great Conchflies, the Last Judge, the Pinstress, and apparently a Plasmium side quest as well. It's no wonder that a lot of things were set aside. The main story would be completely tuned out. But now that the game has been played, the story has been told, these storylines can be reintroduced. I wouldn't be surprised if these Plasmium buds are brought back for Sea of Sorrow. Now moving on to the sub-area to the west of the steppes is the very red Coral River. This area, the predecessor for the Sands, played the same role. It was a platforming challenge designed to test you before you reach the Coral Tower at the very top. Not a lot to say. The Sands of Karak is one of my favorite areas solely for the challenge, and I'm glad that it was somewhat retained. The final sub-area, the bright pink Volt Nest, was the northernmost area. Comparing it to the current Volt Nest, it was so much bigger, and you can even make out Voltworm at the very top. In my first playthrough, Volt Nest felt very empty, like it was an afterthought. So it sucks that yes, there was more planned for this area. It even had 2 entrances through the Coral Steppes and the Coral Tower. I'm also noticing some of the verticality choices made by Team Cherry. Voltworm is at the very top of Volt Nest. The Pinstress is at the very top of the steppes. Now Voltworm is tucked away within Volt Nest, and the Pinstress is also tucked away. Aside from the whole Pinstress story, the team could have thought that constantly going up would get very boring for the player. Ultimately, it was all removed, with the simple explanation that a beautiful lush area went against the Citadel's destructive narrative, noting that the gorge would reduce the drive of the story and the character if the world is beautiful and fine. Unlike other cut areas, it still exists within the story, only being brought forward in time and eroded, becoming the Blasted Steppes and the Sands of Karak. And yes, after playing through Pharloom's glory, I miss this area even more. But just imagine fighting your way through bleak caverns and infested roots, only to be met with this colorful festival. But more of my thoughts at the end of the video. We all know the far fields as this lush, kind of lush area right next to the deep docks. But back in 2017, these fields were called the Scorchlands. Instead of greenery, this area was known for its rocky terrain and scorching lava. For the most part, this seems to be more of an aesthetic choice to fit in with the rest of the lava-themed areas, with the biggest difference being the diving bell. I'm not sure how Team Cherry envisioned trips to the abyss, but it didn't seem to include Balo. Eventually, greenery started appearing in several rooms, until it was everywhere. From there on, the far fields became what we know them as today. I go into further detail in my cut areas video, so definitely check that out. As for the Scorchlands, I'm not so sure. I do feel that lava is underutilized as a hazard, but this feels way too extreme. From these pictures, it seems more like an apocalyptic region, and there's no chance pilgrims would ever travel through here. It is a great idea though, and I wouldn't mind seeing something like this in future games. Hunter's March may land itself amongst the worst areas in the whole Hollow Knight series. It's visually and audibly beautiful, but it's noticeably empty. The Hunter's Nest was planned to be a bigger area, taking inspiration from real ants, with a similar design to a mound. As seen in the reveal trailer, the scar structures within this mound were made out of bones. There was a bridge guarded by Scar, an unused enemy gauntlet, and the Opera House, which housed Hunter Queen Carmelita. They even had their own hatchery, which to me sounds like an incredible idea. Think Craig's Cellar, with Hornet being ambushed for entering a forbidden area. Eventually, the ant mound aesthetic was replaced with something more similar to the current Hunter's March. But even then, there were extra sub-areas which kept this area interesting. There was a bigger dungeon for Gur the Outcast, a Scarguard arena, and even a bigger Chapel of the Beast. Again, I understand why the changes were made. To have such a flourishing tribe in a cursed kingdom would affect Hornet's motives. Why would she need to hurry to save Pharloom if everyone seems to be doing okay? But even with that explanation, was there really a need to cut some of these sub-areas? A bigger Chapel of the Beast wouldn't have hurt. And yeah, sure, why not? Let's add another Scar Gauntlet. So with all this new information, the question arises. Which is better? The old Pharloom or the new Pharloom? Honestly, I don't think one is strictly better than the other. Old Pharloom feels way more ambitious. The Red Coral Gorge, the Hunter's Nest, the Scorchlands, all these extra sub-areas, it feels like a world that was full of life. You can tell Team Cherry had a lot planned, and that version of Pharloom probably would have been incredible to explore. But with time, Team Cherry's vision began to focus on what was most important. So all these wonderful ideas needed to be reshaped. The version of Pharloom we have now feels a lot more bleak. Areas are emptier, harsher, and that actually works for the story Silksong is trying to tell. The haunting feels like a real problem. That said, I still miss Old Pharloom. Not because New Pharloom is bad, but because the cut content shows just how much more there could have been. It feels like we're seeing the remains of a bigger, messier, more ambitious world. For gameplay and narrative cohesion, yeah, New Pharloom wins. For world-building potential and exploration, Old Pharloom is hard to beat. My name is Ari, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more Silksong content. I'll see you all next time.